Welcome back, dear viewers, to the shadowy corner of the internet where greed is a deadly sin and fate has a wicked sense of humor. Tonight we'd sink our claws into Tales from the Crypt's infamous episode, Dead Right. It's a story where fortunes are told, wealth is coveted, and the price of ambition is, well, everything. Our leading lady, Cathy Finch, played by Demi Moore, dreams of glitz and glamour, but she's no Cinderella. She's more Lady Macbeth in pumps. Ruthless, calculating, and hungry for riches. But as the Crypt Keeper loves to remind us, the hand of fate has a nasty habit of striking back. So pour yourself a cup of whatever poison suits you, and let's dig deep into the philosophical and psychological darkness that Dead Right has to offer. In Dead Right, Cathy Finch, played brilliantly by Demi Moore, is a woman driven by one thing, the desire to escape mediocrity. When a psychic promises she'll marry a man destined to inherit a fortune, and that he'll die shortly after, Cathy sets her sights on Charlie Marno, a vulgar, overweight loner with few redeeming qualities. Sounds just like my type, I don't know what her problem is. So Cathy marries Charlie, but her contempt for him festers even when they win the lottery and becomes very rich. The twist comes when Charlie discovers her disdain and in a fit of rage murders her. The psychic's prophecy comes true, but not in the way Cathy had hoped. Her greed leads her straight to the grave, leaving Charlie rich, and the story is a chilling warning. Philosophy offers us a lens to understand Cathy's downfall, and it's as sharp as the blade of fate itself. Let's begin with Immanuel Kant, who would see Cathy's treatment of Charlie as a moral failure. In Kantian ethics, people should be treated as ends in themselves, not as means to an end. Cathy's manipulation of Charlie, seeing him only as a ticket to wealth, violates this principle entirely, reducing him to an object in her grand scheme. On the other hand, Friedrich Nietzsche might view Cathy through the lens of will to power. While her ambition could be seen as a manifestation of strength, Nietzsche would likely critique her for hiding behind deceit and manipulation instead of pursuing her dreams with honesty and courage. Charlie, in contrast, becomes a tragic figure who asserts his power destructively, showing how unchecked emotion can lead to chaos. Turning to Albert Camus, Cathy's plight mirrors the absurd hero's struggle. She chases a vision of wealth, but in doing so, loses sight of any meaningful existence. Her dream of luxury becomes a Sisyphean task, pushing her towards an inevitable downfall. In Cathy's life, wealth is an illusion, and her pursuit of it leads her to absurdity and death. Cathy is a textbook case of unchecked desire. Sigmund Freud would likely argue that her id, the part of her psyche driven by base desires, overpowers her ego and superego. Her greed blinds her to reason, driving her to make decisions that lead to her demise. Carl Jung might see Cathy's actions as a projection of her shadow, those hidden, darker impulses we often suppress. Charlie, too, becomes a reflection of this shadow, embodying the violence and raw emotion Cathy tries to distance herself from. Together, they represent two sides of the same coin, trapped in a tragic dance of destruction. Some may classify Cathy's relentless pursuit of wealth as a neurotic need for prestige. Her disdain for Charlie stems from her inability to see him as anything other than a threat to her desired image. This disconnection leads to her downfall, as her superficial values ultimately betray her. At its core, Dead Right is a tale of greed and fate. It asks us to consider what we're willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of our desires. The episode uses wealth as a symbol of false hope, a glittering prize that ultimately blinds its pursuer. The prophecy, too, is worth examining. It's not just a narrative device, it's a reflection of Cathy's inability to accept uncertainty. In chasing the promise of fortune, she tries to control her future, only to find herself ensnared by it. The psychic's words act as a mirror showing Cathy the inevitability of her own choices. This episode was an early TV appearance for Demi Moore, who would later become one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Her performance as Cathy Finch showcases her ability to balance humor, charm, and menace, a hint of the versatile actress she would soon become. Byung-Chul Han's The Burnout Society critiques the late capitalist imperative to maximize self-optimization. Cathy's relentless ambition to escape mediocrity can be seen as a manifestation of this neoliberal drive, where individual worth is measured solely by material success. Cathy internalizes societal pressures to become someone, rendering her decisions transactional and dehumanized. The The episode's grotesque portrayal of Charlie as a means to an end reflects Han's notion of the exhausted, performance-driven individual. Cathy's willingness to endure an unpalatable marriage underscores the psychic violence inherent in reducing human relationships to mere economic calculations. Her downfall serves as a grim illustration of Han's argument that such relentless self-optimization inevitably leads to burnout or collapse. Shoshana Zuboff's The Age of Surveillance Capitalism examines how predictive algorithms shape human behavior. The fortune teller in Dead Right functions as an analog to these algorithms, offering Cathy a prediction that she then internalizes and acts upon. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy akin to Zuboff's critique of how predictive technologies manipulate individuals under the guise of foresight. Cathy's blind adherence to the fortune teller's vision mirrors the societal surrender to algorithmic control, where human agency is subsumed by the illusion of inevitability. The tragic twist highlights the dangers of surrendering one's autonomy to external forces, whether mystical or technological. Judith Butler's theory of performativity, particularly in the context of gender and class, is also relevant to Cathy's character. Cathy's actions throughout the episode can be read as a performance of class aspiration, where she adopts the behaviors and attitudes she believes are necessary to escape her current socioeconomic status. Her calculated seduction of Charlie and her cold dismissal of his humanity reflect Butler's argument that identity is constructed through repeated acts. Cathy's embrace of the role of the ambitious gold digger is not a reflection of her true self, but a survival strategy within a system that ties a woman's worth to her socioeconomic mobility. The grotesque portrayal of Charlie's physicality can also be analyzed through Butler's lens, as his body becomes a site where societal anxieties about class and masculinity are exaggerated and ridiculed. This dynamic critiques how societal norms render certain bodies acceptable only as objects of utility or derision, further exposing the dehumanizing effects of capitalism. Mark Fisher's capitalist realism provides a stark lens through which to analyze the overarching structure of Dead Right. Fisher argues that under late capitalism, it becomes impossible to imagine alternatives to the current system, trapping individuals in cycles of futile ambition and alienation. Cathy's unwavering belief in wealth as her salvation epitomizes this capitalist realism. She cannot conceive of a fulfilling life outside the confines of financial success, leading her to make choices that ultimately undermine her happiness. This episode's conclusion, where she gains nothing despite her sacrifices, serves as a grim indictment of the capitalist promise of prosperity, a promise that, as Fisher notes, often delivers despair rather than liberation. So Charlie's role within this framework is equally significant. His grotesque wealth and physicality render him both a symbol of capitalist excess and a victim of its dehumanizing logic. His fortune, intended to secure Cathy's future, becomes a weapon of irony, emphasizing the system's capacity for cruelty and unpredictability. And so, as Cathy's plans crumble into dust, we're left with a reminder as cold and sharp as the last breath before the inevitable. Dead Right isn't just a tale of a woman chasing after something she can't touch. It's the story of what happens when we lose ourselves in the pursuit of empty promises. In the end, Cathy's ambition, her cold calculations, her desire for control, none of it mattered, because all the money in the world can't save you from the one thing you can't outrun: the consequences of your own choices. This isn't just a lesson in greed, it's a warning that when you start seeing people as pawns in a game, when you chase the illusion of power and wealth without considering the cost, you'll find yourself facing something much worse than a broken heart or a ruined reputation. You'll be looking into the face of your own undoing. And just like that, Cathy's cold, hard climb to the top becomes a free fall into nothingness. Because in the end, the only thing that's real is what we leave behind, what we do to those around us, and how we treat the fragile thread of fate that weave our lives together. Watch this video next.